Good morning. Church seems to have split away from the Jesus kind of ministry, and we need to come back to it. And the Lord is saying that to us today, that we need to come back to the example, the foundation on which the church was built. The ministry of Jesus Christ was done that way in order that we might have a perfect example of what we should follow, not just his nature, but the spirit of his ministry. We are, as pastors, ministers, apostles and evangelists and prophets, we are committed to following the Lord Jesus in the way that he did his ministry. Now, I see many things that have changed over the years, especially in the last 50 years, from the ministry that Jesus had. I'm talking about churches and evangelistic ministries and teaching ministries on the TV and through radio and various other means. Okay. First of all, Jesus never appealed for money. Yet it seems that every TV program we ever see appeals for money. Secondly, Jesus never talked about money. And yet it seems that the TV evangelists are consumed with talking about money. Thirdly, the prosperity that Jesus talked about was the prosperity mainly of the soul being, because you can have as much money as you want, but if your soul's unhappy, then of course you're a miserable person. Fourthly, the prosperity that Jesus talked about, meeting your needs, was exactly that. It was meeting your needs and not your wants and not your greeds. It was nothing to do with prosperity the way that many people are teaching it today. Now, if you want to go back to the Old Testament, then, be blessed and go back. But I want to just tell you this, that we've finished the Old Testament. Now it's the New. And Jesus, he many times slept rough. He slept outside in the Mount of Olives and places like that. He said, foxes have holes, and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to put down his head. So you have to be very careful when you're talking about the prosperity of God in the New Testament church. In order to go back to the physical prosperity that we see in, say, Solomon's time, you have to go back to the Old Testament, and that's not on. We're in the New Testament, not the Old Testament. Jesus set the example, not Solomon, and not Job, not even Abraham. Abraham set the example of faith, but it didn't set the example for ministry. And the minister of God is told that he will have everything he needs given by God, according to Matthew chapter 6:33 onwards, if he doesn't seek what he needs. Now that's a condition. It's like the long life condition is to honor your father and mother. This condition for God meeting your needs is that you first seek the kingdom and don't seek the money. And then all the things that the unbelievers desire will be added to you according to your needs. I've proved this. In 30 years of ministry, I have lived by faith. I never ask anybody anything. I never take up an offering based on need. When I run churches, I used to take up an offering on Sunday morning, that's all. But I would never share with the congregation any need that I had or that the ministry had. Now, if we're going to build a church building, then of course, then you ask the congregation to get involved. But I'm talking about the ministry and my own needs and my family's needs, etc., etc. These were given to me by God by solemn promise in the Bible. And when I had to go to different countries, like Swaziland, where I went and had to stand up against the king of that country, the Lord provided the means, never from outside the country, but from within. It's a very poor country. And 95% of my congregation, which started from just a couple of people, were the local people in that community. They had no money, but God always provided for me, like He promised in the Bible, and He always provided for my children and my wife, everything that we needed. My children never knew that they were preachers' kids. That they were always got everything they needed, not everything they greeded, not everything they wanted, but if other kids were getting new bicycles, they always got new bicycles. I'm here to tell you that God is a miracle-working God, and you pastors must not start asking for money. You must not. Because the basis of Matthew chapter 6 and verse 33 is that you should not seek what the Gentiles seek. And of course they seek money. They seek education for their kids. They seek a good house, a car, clothes, food. All these things God promised to give to you. He promised it. And I've tested Him and proven that that promise is true. In 30 years of ministry, I've never asked for any need for myself or my family, because I've always relied upon the promises of God. And I want to tell you, beloved, those promises work. Those promises work. God will always provide your needs. You have no need to doubt or be ashamed or start asking other people. Now, listen, if you ask other people for money or even ask them to pray for you for money, then you're doubting God's provision. There's no such prayer in the Bible. We don't pray for money. We're employed. We're full-time ministers. We don't ask people for money. We are the children of the Most High God, and we are priests, employed in His service. Now, if God can't give us what we need for basic living, then we must just give up. You know, Jesus had at least 70 disciples following Him, probably more, and He had to, and they had given up their jobs and followed Him, and He had to provide for them and their families salaries every week. He had to give them what they needed. Otherwise, how could they continue? They'd have to go back to fishing and being tax collectors and things. So He never mentioned that. It is not even mentioned once in 3.5 years of His ministry. You never hear anything about the administration of that ministry or the way that He provided funds for them. And yet He would have had to have done that every week. Now we know that He gave money to the poor, because it tells you that in the book of John, and Judas Iscariot was the treasurer of the ministry. And often He sent him out, it said, to give money to the poor. So they had money over after they had their needs met, the disciples and Jesus. They had money over. But you see, to be money conscious, which is materialism, is not what God asks us to do. He asks us to be kingdom conscious, and that He would promise that supernaturally He would provide our needs. Supernaturally, not naturally. Okay? Now, He might use natural means, He might not. I've proven Him in both. So I just want you to be aware our God is real, our God is true. You can trust Him implicitly, but you must obey what He asks you to do. Be blessed.